Bipartisanship has become a rare sight in Washington, but on Tuesday, Mother Nature brought two Texas lawmakers together. Their flights back to D.C. were canceled because of the snow. So Representatives Hurd and Beto O'Rourke decided to take to the road to get back to work and talked policy and personal matters along the way. I caught up with them earlier while they were live streaming their trip. So first of all, before we get to the issues, and there are many, whose idea was it to do this road trip?
Well, I was visiting with Hurd in San Antonio. We were meeting with veterans and veteran service organizations, the VA, when we started talking about how we were going to make it back to D.C. in the midst of one of the worst storms so far this year. And Will told me that his Southwest Airlines flight had been canceled. And I suggested, kind of off the top of my head, that we rent a car and drive to D.C. from San Antonio, kind of expecting Will to laugh it off and say no. And Will accepted, and we took it a step further by live streaming what we're doing and sharing it with anyone in the country who'd like to take part in it.
So we've been dipping in and out, and I've been watching. You've been getting a lot of questions in the comments section about a variety of issues. First up, let's talk about health care. Of course, the House is expected to vote on the American Health Care Act sometime in the coming weeks. It's been criticized, as you both know, by both Republicans and Democrats. What are your takes on this bill as it stands right now?
Well, I'm deeply concerned about the number of people projected to functionally not be able to access health care by the CBO, 24 million people ultimately. We need to be bringing more people on the health care rolls, not fewer. We need to have greater access. That'll ensure greater outcomes for our citizens. They'll be more productive, be able to continue their jobs, create more jobs, and produce more economic success in our communities and our country. But we're going to have to find a bipartisan way to do this. The Republicans are in the majority. They have the White House. So I'm trying to work with Hurd to find ways where we can get some common ground to start with, and then hopefully have a bipartisan compromise that works for the greatest number of people in this country. Will, I'll let you take a shot.
One of the conversations Beto and I have been having in the car is on this notion of a single-payer system, and why do we think that is going to bend costs down. I think the goal is to increase access to and decrease costs of health care. And in Texas alone, premiums for people's insurance are going to go up, have gone up on an average of 33%. Deductibles are rising. There's people that have deductibles that are $10,000. If you have a $10,000 deductible, you don't have health care, or you don't have real insurance. And so the CBO score did talk about over 10 years, 24 million people may not be with insurance, but it did talk about how choices were going to be increased, how premiums were going to decrease, and that there were more options available. And this is just one step in the reformation of healthcare. This bill that's being passed, so this will be probably about 2 or 3 more weeks of debate. There's likely to be some amendments. And then we got to make sure that the Senate is on board. And right now, there's many Republicans in the Senate voicing their concerns. But Tom Price, as Secretary of HHS, he has a pretty broad ability to do things in the healthcare market under the rules, under the power given to him by the Affordable Care Act. And then there's things that we need to do through regular order, which are going to require 60 votes in the Senate. So the debate is going to go on for the next 2 weeks, getting a lot of feedback. And for folks that have it, you can read the bill at readthebill.com. I believe that is the website.
Well, a lot of people are going to be watching this debate, and some people have already started speculating about how this legislation might play out in the 2018 elections. Are either of you eyeing a different seat that year? Congressman O'Rourke?
Well, I'm thinking about and talking with my wife, Amy, and our family about running for Senate in 2018. And certainly one of the issues that, is causing me to think about it is ensuring that everyone in our state has access to quality, affordable health care. And that certainly doesn't exist right now. Our state chose not to expand Medicaid, which I think was a disaster. And our state, being the second largest by population, should be a major player in determining the future of healthcare, of access, of affordability. And we're not doing that right now. And so, when you have healthcare, when you're not worried about that, you can focus on your job or getting a better job or your education or taking care of your kids. You don't have to make terrible choices between buying medication and putting food on the table, seeing a doctor, or paying the rent. And those are the choices that far too many Texans are making today. So, incumbent on me to do everything I can to be as effective as possible in this job or another job to do just that.
Congressman Hurd, let me ask you, you worked for the CIA for a number of years. The president reportedly is looking at allowing the agency to conduct its own drone strikes. Do you think that's a smart move?
The use of drones in operations, and whether it's Title 10 authorities, military authorities, Title 50 authorities, the Title 50 authorities is, when you're in the intelligence world, it's something you try not to talk about in the open media, but the intelligence community have a different set of standards, and this is a tool, drones, that President Obama used more than any other president. He increased the number of these types of strikes. I think you can do it in a way that reduces collateral damage. And this is a policy that anytime any new president comes in should be reviewing for effectiveness.
Congressman Hurd, you're also on the House Intelligence Committee. Have you heard anything new about the president's wiretapping claims?
So again, I have not seen evidence to suggest that President Obama was aware of any type of wiretaps. Now, if something were to happen, if there was an individual that had a phone tap that was working in Trump Tower, that's something that DOJ and FBI would have approached a judge in order to get a warrant to do that. The judge would have had to see probable cause in order to do that type of thing from happening. But all of the House Intelligence Committee is looking in a very bipartisan, thorough way at Russian involvement in our election, American contact with Russian intelligence. I know folks want answers yesterday, but you got to allow law enforcement to do their job, and then you got to allow the oversight committee to ensure that a law enforcement community and intelligence community did everything, crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's. But this is something that needs to be done in a thoughtful manner, in a bipartisan manner, and the results need to be shared with the public as well, so people can be comfortable that they know everything was done properly.
Turning back to the issue of the road trip, I was looking at some of the Facebook comments, and it's interesting. Cindy said, "This is awfully refreshing, takes me back to when folks from both parties could be civil." Neil says, "Glad to see a Republican and Democrat getting along." One of the things that you all said is that it's important to actually listen to each other and not have folks go back into their corners. Congressman, this is a question for both of you. How do you get more lawmakers in Washington to do the kind of thing that you're doing right now?
Let me start by saying that it used to be like this more often, where members of Congress from across the aisle got to know each other, spent time with each other. I think we've increasingly become overly focused on our own reelection, on the election of others of our same party, of raising money to do both of those things, to the exclusion of focusing on our job, getting to know each other, learning the subject matter that's important to the committee work that we do, and finding solutions across the aisle. And Will and I have been doing this for the last 8 hours. I think there needs to be more of this, talking through some of these issues. It's nice to talk about the things we agree on. We both think there should not be a wall between the United States and Mexico. But it's more important, and I think more useful for us to talk about things that we don't necessarily agree on. Healthcare is just one of them, where we've got to find that common ground from which we can start building compromise and agreement and get something done that's going to be lasting, sustainable, and work for as many people as possible. So I hope this is a trend of, at least in our lives, more to come, and I hope that other members will do the same.
I think we can get a bigger car next time, bring a few more people with us.
That's right, we're going to get a bus.
Who controls the radio, Congressman?
You know, Will has got the auxiliary jack plugged into his spare phone, so we've been listening to some of his tunes.
Okay.
And then every town we go through, we try to find a radio station and just hear what folks are listening to. So,
Do you have a favorite song you think we should play?
Well, I was just amazed you were listening to Ed Sheeran's new song, right? Shape of You earlier when I dipped in. Is that right?
You're right. We're trying to get him to Texas. It's a concert in El Paso and San Antonio. So if let people know if you know anyone.
Yeah. All right. I'll certainly put in a word. Representatives Will Hurd and Beto O'Rourke of Texas. Congressman, thanks so much.
thank you. Bye-bye.